All right, guys, we have a really good tip of the week. It actually relates to content and creating shareable content. And David, you put together this list for us, 5 ideas for shareable content. And I know we've talked about shareable content in the past, but this is different. Before we talked about the nuances of what shareable content is. In this tip of the week, you're going to talk about specific types of shareable content and how to cultivate and create it pretty easily.
Yeah, we're going to be going over specific examples this week. So if you've already started getting started with creating content on your website, trying to make it so that it's appealing to your members and informative enough so that they're willing to share it with their friends and their audiences and maybe their customers. Maybe you're starting to run out of ideas of how to keep the content fresh and exciting for the members instead of kind of just recycling previous content. And so hopefully you'll be able to get some good ideas from this. We also have a blog article that we can link to here in the chat for 12 ideas for shareable content. So we're just kind of covering what we think are the most important, the most likely to be shared, the most exciting types of shareable content, as well as ones that aren't too difficult for you to do yourself if you're limited on time or resources.
Yeah, so just as a refresher, what is shareable content? So all sites need content. You have your member directory, that's fine, but having blog articles or members adding articles or events for your local area or coupons or jobs or property listings or products or photo albums, those are all content. But you as the website owner cannot only rely on your users, especially when you're starting out, to create the content for you. So what we need to do is create shareable content. And the reason it needs to be shareable is it might not go viral, but we need somewhat of an effect where it can have some chance of getting shared among the audience you're trying to serve. So how do we create shareable content? Well, first it has to be relevant to your audience. They have to care about it when they see the title, when they see the image, when they see the caption. It should be easy to read and understand. People have short memory spans these days. They're bombarded with lots of different content all day long. So the easier it is to digest the content, the more encouraged they'll be to want to read it. It's not going to intimidate people. A lot of people don't have time to read a long content today, or it could be a long article. It just has to be very captivating. So speaking of captivating, you want it to be informative, exciting, controversial, funny. It has to evoke some emotion from the reader. Otherwise, it's just a bland piece of content. So you can figure out what types of headlines would interest your users, and once you find something that's working, you most likely want to stick with it.
Creating content can be a challenge. It depends largely on what industry you're serving, who your target audience is, but at the end of the day, creating that content is absolutely necessary for the success of your website. You want to continue to make sure that your community is engaged with each other, with you, your website, and you also want to continuously drive new traffic to your site to continue to build that community that you're fostering. So the key here is to create a content creation routine that's easy for you to stick to. Maybe you want to create once a week a list of new articles, videos, whatever the content may be, that you can begin to create and slowly publish. Once you have that list of maybe 10, 20, 30 different topics, you can then begin to work on creating those topics. Maybe you want to start off with something easy to stick to, maybe one piece of content per week. And then as you start to get the hang of it, you start to get a good format down that you can reuse, then maybe you can up your content creation to 3 times a week. If you want to hire a team or maybe some freelancers to do that for you, that's an option, but not a lot of people have those resources to do that. So as long as you can create a good routine that you can stick to where you're publishing new content at somewhat of a consistent basis, then you should be fine.
I think the key here is, creating content, like writing a blog article, it requires a lot of time, mental energy, and resources to commit that time to writing the article. So hopefully with these ideas, it creates somewhat of a shortcut to expedite it, save you time, and make it a little easier to overcome the obstacles of wanting to write content. Essentially, with these tips, hopefully the content will create itself. It just pours out of you because it's so easy to create it. You don't have to think too much. And also on that note that David mentioned, there are some amazing writers out there, freelancers. You can give them a topic and a format. And again, if you do have the resources, anywhere from 10 to 50 bucks an article. It just depends how many words you're asking them to write and what your needs are exactly. You can outsource that kind of help for your site. And when you find, you could maybe try 3 or 4 different freelancers, give them all topics, and then stick with 1 or 2 of them that you like the best. And you don't need 10 articles a week. Maybe you just have them write 4 pieces of good quality content for your site per week. But what we're going to talk about in this is not just about writing articles, it's alternative types of content that you can create.
And the last thing before we get into this list that I want to preface is that you don't need to strictly focus on shareable content. You still want to keep your current members and users engaged and provide them with quality content that's useful to them. So if you can think of certain pieces of content that would be useful to your community, but may not be the most shareable kinds of content, still put them out, fit them into your content creation schedule, because they'll keep your current members and users happy, which is still important. And then you can, in addition, publish those shareable pieces of content to expand your user base. So you want to keep kind of both sides of that scale even. Creating content that keeps your existing members happy while also creating shareable content that can bring in new members. So this first idea that we have here are cheat sheets and infographics. Infographics, if you're a little tech savvy and you're creative and you have the time to create them, but cheat sheets are pretty easy. So the idea behind this is that some users and readers, they don't want to read long pieces of text. Even if you can break the text down into different segments and separate blocks of text with images, it can still be cumbersome, time consuming, and takes more effort to go through those long pieces of text. So in order to kind of condense that and make it more easier to digest as well as more shareable, instead of creating long pieces of text, you can break them down into checklists, listicles, which here we call short organized lists. And again, infographics if you have the time. Canva is a great resource where you can create image-based pieces of content. Ultimately, the thing here is that you want to provide essential information in these short pieces of content. You don't want to make them too bloated. You want to give the readers the information they want as quickly and easily as possible. And that way, hopefully, they'll come back to your website in the future to dig further into the other information that you have available to them.
And actually, cheat sheets and infographics, especially when they're in image format, those are great to share on social media. And if it's high value for the industry you're sharing, your audience would have no problem sharing it, resharing it, and reposting it on their own profiles.
Yeah, especially if you can advertise it in a way that it's an exclusive resource. So, for example, a checklist. If you have a real estate directory, maybe one piece of shareable content that you can create is, checklist before listing your house for sale or something like that. And that would be a piece of content that should be pretty shareable on social media. It probably wouldn't be too useful to the majority of your members since they're already familiar with the industry, but for new people who aren't familiar with selling or buying houses, that piece of content may be of value.
And I just did a Google for sample infographics. And again, tools like canva.com, it's free to sign up. They have thousands of templates where you can easily create things like this. So I mean, look at this. It just says study tips and it's got these 3 tips on it. It could be a little more elaborate like this one. But besides Canva, there's tons of tools out there that have all these free templates. All you have to do is almost just fill in the blanks and you can create these resources for your industry. And again, this is alternative content as opposed to like just writing a blog article, which is a more conventional form of writing content. So look how fun these look. These are just samples here, and they could be pretty straightforward here. 5 reasons infographics are effective. It's basically really cool text, some graphics, and then some titles and supportive text to go with it. So those are some examples of some infographics.
So when publishing interviews, you do want to have the interview in a text-based form. So you can format this just in the simple Q&A format. You can have your question that you're asking the person you're interviewing in bold and have their answer just right below that in normal text. This is great for SEO, so you absolutely still want to have text associated with interviews, but if you're able to get some form of media version of the interview, then definitely do that. You can do strictly audio, that's perfectly fine. You can publish the audio version of an interview on SoundCloud, or you could use YouTube to either publish just an audio version with maybe just an image of your face and the interviewee's face, or if you're able to perform an interview maybe over video chat on Skype, or if you're in the same location as the person you're interviewing and you can record it on a camera, you can publish the video version of the interview on YouTube as well. So this gives a more shareable version of the interview, having that media format, and then you can further splice the interview down into segments. So maybe if the person you're interviewing has 30 seconds or a minute of really valuable information for your target audience, you can just splice that one section out, publish that on its own, and then that would make a much better shareable piece of content compared to the interview as a whole.
All right, now I know what everyone's thinking here. I don't know how to record audio. I don't know how to upload it to YouTube. I don't know what SoundCloud is. Who do I interview in the first place? So interviews are really good because of David, what they're saying. It's an alternative form of content. Now, the easiest thing you can do is select a member or an icon or guru in your industry and tell them that our people are really interested in learning more about you, or you've been selected to be showcased in our blog. Would you be interested in being showcased in our blog? And then say, okay, fill out this questionnaire and email it back to us. And maybe it has 10 questions in there about who they are, their background, how they got started, their biggest obstacles that they've overcome, just things that tell them, that share a little bit about them and their journey in your market. You get those questions back and then you turn it into an article. They're going to share it with their followers. Your followers are going to wonder how they can get showcased, and it creates a great symbiotic relationship between your members and other people in the industry. For recordings, if you don't know how to record and things like that, there's lots of free tools there. I know that you can use GoToMeeting, and I don't know if they have a free trial, but it basically lets you get on a call with someone and you can record that call, just like we record these webinars. So you can record the audio that way and just get on a web call with them. There's also things like Loom, I believe. You can Google just video recording and things like that. So if you could just get someone on a call, you can just record your screen. You can have a splash title, so when you upload it to YouTube, it just has that image playing, and the whole time you could just say who the interview is. But those are really easy ways to create content, because you have a preset of questions, questions that you use maybe always for the same format, and you just ask the questions and have a fireside chat with someone. Emailing them the questions is the easiest thing, but interviews are a great way to show that you're connecting to your community and that you care about your members, and you're trying to humanize yourself and your members for the rest of the people that are following you. So consider interviews as a really great way to create content, shareable content, because it's involving everyone in the process.
And actually, the simplest way to probably record an interview would just be on your smartphone. I don't think it's a stretch to assume that the vast majority of us now have smartphones. Most smartphones now have an application by default where you can record audio. So what you could do is, if you're conducting the interview on your phone, you could just put the call on speakerphone, and then in the background run the audio recording application, and then just record the audio that way. And then if you're uploading to YouTube, for example, YouTube lets you upload directly from your phone. And of course, there's editing applications now for your smartphones as well. So if you wanted to add an image on top of the audio, you could do that, and then strictly from there upload the video to YouTube all on your phone. So that's a really simple, low-cost, efficient way to conduct and share interviews as well. Now on to the Third type of shareable content, downloads. So these you really want to be industry related. You don't want to stray too far away from the goals of your target audience. You want the downloads that you're offering to be applicable not only to your members, but also to general users of your website. For example, going back to the real estate example, you could have ebooks specifically for retailers, maybe how to best stage a house to increase the likelihood of selling. You could also have one on the flip side for buyers. Look at these aspects of a house before buying or before placing an offer. And so you can offer these downloads in the form of ebooks, worksheets, guides, blueprints, however you want to advertise them and whatever term you think would best appeal to the target audience.
Hey Dave, so also I wanted to share something. I think in a previous webinar we talked about lead magnets, because basically creating a download is what's called a lead magnet. It's a way to bring people to your site and attract them with a lead magnet. I'm going to share this link here. It shows you with the code how to kind of create a simple page. You can obviously have the text and the image be whatever you want it to be. How to create the click to download button, and there's just simple code here. You could just change the text out. It's all going to be formatted perfectly. Or we have Esteban on the line here. You could use BD blocks. Now, we talked about this in previous webinars. You can all go to bdblocks.com to create landing pages for your downloadable products, but I'll share this link as well. And I'll share the link for BD blocks so you can create amazing landing pages, and these can be landing pages for the different downloads that you want to offer. So I'll share this in the chat here. You guys are all getting these links in the chat there. But yeah, it's really easy to create those assets and then create landing pages where people can exchange their email address for access to these ebooks and guides and worksheets.
Yeah, just as an additional option when it comes to downloads, free downloads are going to be really your only option if your goal is to make these shareable, if you want people to share them. However, if you want to sell premium downloads, we do have the Sell Digital Downloads add-on now. That's probably mainly going to be beneficial for your existing members. They already trust you. They already know what to expect from your online community. And so they'll be more likely to pay for those downloads that you're offering. Strictly for the shareable aspect of it, you're going to want to make sure that you provide these downloads for free so that anybody who does share it, anybody they're sharing it with, will also be able to download these resources. And now videos. So videos are more important than ever now when it comes to anything having to do online. They're shared 12 times more than just your typical text-based articles, and 72% of consumers actually prefer videos when it comes to marketing elements. And ultimately, that's what we're using these shareable pieces of content for, is to market your online communities. So video is extremely important now. You're going to want to make sure that your videos are both informative and useful to your target audience. Here at the bottom of the slide, we have the ideal shareable video length for different platforms. This is going to depend on who your target audience is, which social platforms they use the most. You can see here on Instagram, that would probably be good for maybe real estate, fitness, things that are more visually oriented. Videos for that platform, you really want to keep to about 30 seconds to increase the shareability of them. Facebook, you can keep to about a minute, and then YouTube, which obviously a platform specifically meant for watching videos. To really make sure a video will be shared, you're going to want to still keep it short, about 2 minutes. However, going back to my preface of this whole presentation, you can create a video that's 10, 20, 30 minutes long if it's going to be of value and useful to your existing members. In this presentation, though, we're strictly kind of keeping this all within that shareable umbrella. So for the shareable videos, to try to get those new people into your community, you're going to want to keep the information short, sweet, condensed, not waste a lot of their time, try to get them sucked in as quickly as possible. But for information relevant to your existing members, feel free to disregard these video lengths, because really for them, you want to provide them with the most detailed, clear, accessible information as possible, because that's what they expect when they're signing up for your community website.
And here's a tip also. we create these video segments in the webinars with the tip of the weeks. And what we've actually done with a couple of these is we add them to our blog, and usually we would just post the video. Now we're actually creating a supportive article to go along with the video that we created. So with that said, creating videos can sometimes be labor intensive, a little complicated as well, and especially you don't know what to talk about. But imagine if you turned one of the infographics you created, and it had like 5 pieces of information, and you just created a video where you're just talking about the infographic and just verbally saying what's on the same infographic. So now you have an infographic, you have a supportive video that you might elaborate a little bit more on the points that are on the infographic, but then you can create a cohesive campaign around some type of shareable content that you're trying to create for your community. So it doesn't always have to be new stuff that you're coming up with. You can always repurpose stuff that you've already created and just turn it into a different format.
Yeah, that's an excellent tip. And again, going back to the feeling of maybe, this might be a little daunting if you're not familiar with creating videos. We all have smartphones now with selfie cameras. It's incredibly easy, at least when you're just getting started. You can record yourself going over, like Jason said, if you already have an infographic, maybe 5 tips to sell your house or whatever piece of content you're making the video for. And then you can either just post that on its own, or to make it more shareable, you can make it a little bit more exciting. You can go on YouTube and look for tutorials on maybe how to add background music to a video, how to make an introduction slide for a video, and kind of get those basic edits done, and then you can upload that to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever the platform of your choice is, just to make it a little bit more likely to be shared, liven it up a little bit. But ultimately, you don't need to go out there and you don't need to run down to Best Buy or Circuit City or any of your local stores and buy a video camera anymore. You can just use the technology that we have in our pockets.
And just 2 tips. If you're just starting out with this and not super familiar with it, with any of them, the infographics, downloads, shorter is better, less is more, and don't worry about anything being perfect. Just get your first pieces of content out there and just work towards improving each time you create a new piece of content.
Yeah, the best way to learn is just through trial and error. Your existing members will appreciate the effort that you're putting into creating these new forms of content for them. And then the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it, the more you'll learn, the more hopefully you'll become interested in it, and you may look up tutorials on YouTube or helpful articles on Google for how to improve your skills in creating these other forms of content to further improve your skills. So there is a learning curve with some of this, but the key is to just get started and put out those first pieces of content. So moving on to the last piece of shareable content here, going back to the basics, we have articles. However, instead of just posting plain piece of text, you can change up the format of your articles. You can create written tutorials with a lot of included images to break up the text and make it more interesting. You can write listicles. So instead of writing just paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, whatever the topic may be, you can just turn it into a list. So top 10 ways to increase curb appeal. Next up, you could do industry news. This is should typically just be a pretty short piece of content giving your members whatever is new in the industry that you're targeting. You could also feature member submitted articles. So you can ask your members to submit you articles, and you may need to clean them up a little bit, maybe reformat them, maybe make them a little bit shorter or edit some grammar. But this is a really good way to streamline your content creation process. You'll need to put in less effort and less work, and your members will appreciate it because at the end of the article, you can say who the author of the article was. You can link back to their profile. They'll get credit for it. If they have any followers online, they may share it with their followers or their customers, and it'll help get them more engaged in your website as well. And then the last type of article are member spotlights. This kind of goes hand in hand with the interviews piece of content that we covered a few slides ago. But you can feature specific members in your community, maybe ones who are posting a lot of content or really standing out, maybe even just new members. you can get some background information on them, write a short little piece about them, why they stand out, link to their website or any of their social media channels, and that will again get them really excited about your website, maybe reinvigorate them, and they'll be more likely to share that with any of their potential clients or customers or their friends and family, and then you may end up getting new members because of that. And then lastly, just an overall tip here with general text articles is make sure you break them up with images, and also make sure to break up the text with headings. So instead of having paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, you can have paragraphs, but make sure you split the articles up into different sections with different headings, and then also break those up further with images. It just really helps to make text articles more digestible.
So here's an example on our own blog on Brilliant Directories. We had a tip of the week here, and the video's here. I think it was last week's tip of the week. And we actually had a supportive article which not just summarizes what's in the video, but adds additional supportive material that's related to the video. So not only is the video shareable, now there's an article here which helps with some SEO on our Brilliant Directories website on this topic. And as David mentioned, there's some headings here. Granted, I think we could use our own tip here and maybe add some images into this freshly written article. Now, what's cool about articles is you can always come back and update them as well. The things on the internet, you can come back and update, for example, in things in your blog. So great tips there, David.